The year was 2005. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and the promise of summer vacation. Emily was a bright spark in the small town of Havenwood. She had sunshine in her hair and a laugh that could chase away any storm cloud. At 10 years old, Emily was the star of her fourth-grade class. She loved to read, devouring books about faraway lands and daring adventures. Math was a breeze, and she always had a kind word for everyone. Her house, a cozy blue cottage with a white picket fence, was filled with the aroma of her mom's baking and the sound of her dad's cheerful whistling. Emily had a dog named Buster, a fluffy golden retriever who followed her everywhere, his tail wagging like a metronome. Her best friend, Sarah, lived just across the street, and they spent hours building forts in the woods behind their houses, dreaming up fantastical stories. School days were usually Emily's favorite. She loved learning new things and playing with her friends during recess. Mrs. Davison, her teacher, always praised her enthusiasm and helpfulness. That particular Tuesday started like any other. Emily woke up, ate a stack of pancakes with extra syrup, and Buster licked her face, showering her with morning kisses. She skipped to the bus stop, chatting excitedly with Sarah about their plans for the weekend. A trip to the ice cream parlor and a sleepover at Emily's house. The school bus rumbled down Main Street, filled with the chatter of excited children. Emily waved to Mr. Henderson, the friendly bus driver, and took her usual seat next to Sarah. Little did anyone know, this seemingly ordinary day would soon turn into a nightmare that would haunt Havenwood forever. The school day buzzed with the usual mix of lessons and laughter. Emily aced her math test, earning a bright red star on her paper. During art class, she painted a vibrant picture of a unicorn prancing through a rainbow, her imagination spilling onto the canvas. Recess was filled with games of tag and jump rope, Emily's infectious giggles echoing across the playground. As the final bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, a wave of excitement washed over the students. Emily gathered her books, her heart light with anticipation for her afternoon plans. She was supposed to meet Sarah at the park to fly kites. Emily waved goodbye to Mrs. Davison and stepped out into the warm afternoon sunshine. She usually walked home with Sarah, but today Sarah had to go to the dentist. So, Emily started her walk alone, down the familiar path that wound through the quiet streets of Havenwood. She passed Mrs. Gable's flower shop, admiring the colorful blooms that spilled onto the sidewalk. She smiled at Mr. Johnson, the friendly mailman, who always had a lollipop for her. Everything seemed perfectly normal. As Emily turned the corner onto Elm Street, a sense of unease crept into her heart. She couldn't explain it, but something felt different. The air seemed still, and the shadows seemed longer than usual. She quickened her pace, eager to reach the safety of her own street. She walked past the old oak tree at the edge of the woods, its branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. A shiver ran down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She glanced over her shoulder, but there was no one there, just the rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of birds. Emily continued her walk, trying to dismiss her growing anxiety. But the feeling persisted, a knot tightening in her stomach. Little did she know, this would be the last time anyone would see Emily walking home from school. This was the beginning of Havenwood's long nightmare. Emily never made it to the park to meet Sarah. She never arrived home for dinner. The last anyone saw of her was as she rounded the corner onto Elm Street, her small figure disappearing behind the tall oak tree. When Emily didn't show up at the park, Sarah assumed she had been delayed. But as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sarah started to worry. She ran to Emily's house, her heart pounding in her chest. Emily's mom, Mrs. Carter, was already frantic. Emily was never late without calling. Mr. Carter joined the search, and soon the entire neighborhood was out, calling Emily's name, their voices echoing through the twilight. "Emily! Emily, where are you?" Buster, Emily's loyal dog, whined and barked, sensing the distress in the air. He tugged at his leash, pulling Mr. Carter towards the woods, as if he knew where Emily was. The police were called, and a full-scale search began. Officers combed the streets, the woods, and the nearby fields. Search dogs sniffed the ground, trying to pick up Emily's scent. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their spotlights cutting through the darkness. But there was no sign of Emily. No cruz. No trace. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. The town of Havenwood was gripped by fear and disbelief. How could a little girl just disappear? Where could she have gone? The questions hung heavy in the air, unanswered and agonizing. The next morning, the search intensified. Volunteers from neighboring towns joined the effort. News crews arrived, their cameras capturing the raw emotion and desperation of Emily's family and friends. Emily's picture was plastered on every television screen, every newspaper, every lamppost. A reward was offered for any information leading to her safe return. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. But Emily remained missing. The hope that she would be found alive began to dwindle, replaced by a gnawing sense of despair. The mystery of Emily's disappearance deepened, casting a long shadow over Havenwood, a shadow that would linger for years to come. The once peaceful town was now haunted by the ghost of a missing girl. The days following Emily's disappearance were a blur of frantic activity and crushing disappointment. The town of Havenwood rallied together, united in their determination to find her. Every street corner, every storefront, every telephone pole was plastered with posters featuring Emily's smiling face. "Have you seen Emily?" the posters pleaded, her bright eyes seeming to look directly into the hearts of those who passed by. Volunteers organized search parties, scouring the woods, fields, and riverbanks. They called out her name, their voices hoarse with exhaustion and worry. Emily's classmates drew pictures for her, hoping to bring her home with their colorful creations. They made get-well-soon cards, even though Emily wasn't sick, because they couldn't think of anything else to write. Emily's family was at the center of the storm, their grief raw and palpable. Mrs. Carter spent hours talking to the police, reliving every detail of Emily's life, searching for any clue that might lead to her daughter's whereabouts. Mr. Carter walked through the woods every day with Buster, hoping the dog would pick up Emily's scent. But Buster only whined and looked up at him with sad, knowing eyes. The news media descended upon Havenwood, their cameras and microphones capturing every tearful interview, every fruitless search. Emily's story became a national obsession, her face gracing the covers of magazines and newspapers across the country. Tip lines were flooded with calls, but none of the leads panned out. Psychics offered their services, claiming to have visions of Emily's location, but their predictions proved to be false. The police investigated every possible angle, from runaway theories to potential kidnappings, but they found nothing concrete. Despite the tireless efforts of the community, the police, and the media, Emily remained missing. The investigation stalled, and the case grew cold. The posters faded and peeled, but Emily's memory remained etched in the hearts of the people of Havenwood. The town tried to move on, but the shadow of Emily's disappearance lingered, a constant reminder of the little girl who had vanished without a trace. The once vibrant town was now tinged with a sense of loss and unspoken fear. Years drifted by like fallen leaves, carried on the wind. The vibrant colors of Havenwood seemed to fade, replaced by muted tones of remembrance and regret. The missing posters, once so prominent, were now tattered remnants of a painful past, clinging to the walls like ghosts. Emily's disappearance became a part of Havenwood's identity, a tragic story whispered in hushed tones. Children grew up hearing about the little girl who vanished, a cautionary tale passed down from one generation to the next. Sarah, Emily's best friend, never forgot her. She carried Emily's memory with her, a constant reminder of the joy they had shared and the future that was stolen. Sarah moved away after high school, seeking a fresh start, but Havenwood and Emily's disappearance were forever etched in her mind. As the years passed, the town's population dwindled. Families moved away, seeking opportunities elsewhere. The old school, once the heart of the community, became a symbol of the town's decline. The school board decided to close its doors, consolidating the remaining students into a larger school in a neighboring town. The old school building stood empty and silent, a hollow shell of its former self. The classrooms, once filled with the laughter and energy of children, were now dark and dusty. The playground, where Emily had spent countless hours playing tag and jump rope, was overgrown with weeds. The building became a forgotten relic, a place where memories lingered and secrets lay buried. The hallways echoed with the ghosts of children past, their voices faint but persistent. The air was thick with the scent of old books and forgotten dreams. The closure of the school marked the end of an era for Havenwood. It was a stark reminder of the town's fading glory and the enduring mystery of Emily's disappearance. The school, like Emily, had vanished, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a lingering sense of loss. Little did anyone know, the old school held a secret, a hidden clue that would one day bring Emily's story back to light. Nearly 2 decades after Emily's disappearance, the old school building was slated for demolition. A developer had purchased the property, planning to build a new housing complex. Before the wrecking ball could arrive, a small team of contractors was hired to assess the building and remove any hazardous materials. Among them was a man named Arthur, the school's former janitor. Arthur was a quiet, unassuming man with a kind face and gentle eyes. He had worked at the school for many years, watching generations of children pass through its doors. He remembered Emily well, her bright smile and infectious laughter. The memory of her disappearance still weighed heavily on his heart. One afternoon, while inspecting the old locker room, Arthur noticed something odd. One of the lockers, tucked away in a dark corner, was different from the others. It was sealed shut with heavy-duty bolts and covered in a thick layer of dust. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Curiosity piqued, Arthur tried to open the locker. The bolts were rusted and wouldn't budge. He retrieved his toolbox and began to work on the stubborn fasteners. The metal screeched and groaned as he applied pressure. Time seemed to slow down as Arthur wrestled with the locker. Each turn of the wrench was met with resistance, as if the locker was determined to keep its secrets hidden. A sense of anticipation filled the air, a feeling that something important was about to be revealed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last bolt snapped free. Arthur took a deep breath and slowly pulled open the locker door. The hinges creaked in protest, releasing a musty odor that filled the room. Arthur peered inside, his heart pounding in his chest. What he saw would change everything. The secrets hidden within the locker were about to be unearthed, and Emily's story would be told once more. Inside the locker, nestled among a few faded photographs and a dusty, forgotten lunchbox, was a small, worn-out diary. Its cover was a soft, faded blue, and the edges were frayed, as if it had been handled countless times. The pages were yellowed with age, and the ink had faded in places, but the words were still legible. Arthur carefully lifted the diary from the locker, his hands trembling slightly. He recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Emily's. He remembered seeing her writing assignments, her neat, careful letters filling the pages of her school notebooks. This was undoubtedly her diary. A wave of emotion washed over Arthur, sadness, regret, and a flicker of hope. Could this diary hold the key to unlocking the mystery of Emily's disappearance? Could it provide answers that had eluded investigators for so many years? He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning the entries. The diary appeared to span several weeks leading up to Emily's disappearance. The early entries were filled with the innocent musings of a young girl, accounts of schoolyard games, descriptions of her beloved dog, Buster, and dreams of becoming a veterinarian. But as Arthur continued to read, a darker tone began to emerge. The later entries revealed a growing sense of fear and anxiety. Emily wrote about feeling like she was being watched, of seeing a shadowy figure lurking near the school. She wrote about a secret she couldn't tell anyone, a secret that was weighing heavily on her heart. Arthur's heart ached as he read Emily's words. He couldn't believe that this sweet, innocent child had been carrying such a burden. He felt a surge of anger towards whoever or whatever had caused her such distress. He knew he had to take the diary to the police. It was the most important clue in Emily's case in nearly 2 decades. It was a chance to finally bring closure to Emily's family and to uncover the truth about what happened to her on that fateful day. The diary held Emily's voice, a voice that had been silenced for too long, and now, finally, it was ready to speak. Arthur carefully opened the diary to one of the later entries, dated just a few weeks before Emily disappeared. The handwriting was still neat, but there was a shakiness to the letters, as if Emily had been writing in a hurry or was upset. He began to read. October 14th, 2005. Dear Diary, Asterisk, I have a secret, and it's making me really scared. I don't know who to tell, so I'm writing it here. Lately, when I walk home from school, I feel like someone is watching me. It's a creepy feeling, like eyes are following me even when I can't see anyone. Star. Asterisk, at first, I thought it was just my imagination. Maybe it was just the wind or the shadows playing tricks on me. But it's been happening every day for the past week. And it's getting worse. Star. Asterisk, sometimes I hear footsteps behind me, but when I turn around, there's no one there. Other times, I see a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye, but they disappear before I can get a good look. Star. Asterisk, I tried to tell Sarah about it today, but I couldn't. I was too scared. I don't want her to think I'm being silly or making things up, but I know what I feel, and it's real. I'm afraid to walk home alone now. Star. Asterisk, I wish Buster could walk with me, but he has to stay home. Maybe I should ask my mom to pick me up from school, but I don't want her to worry. I don't want anyone to worry. I just want this feeling to go away. Star. Asterisk, I hope it's just my imagination. I hope it stops soon. I don't like being scared. Star. Love. Emily. Arthur closed the diary, his heart heavy with sadness. He could only imagine the fear Emily must have felt, walking home each day, convinced that someone was watching her. He wondered if this secret fear had anything to do with her disappearance. Had she been trying to tell someone something without actually saying it? The diary entry was a chilling glimpse into Emily's final days, a cry for help that had gone unanswered for far too long. Arthur turned the page, his fingers tracing the faded ink. The next entry was dated just a few days later. October 17th, 2005. Dear Diary. Asterisk, it's happening again. The feeling of being watched. It's even worse now. I think I saw him today. I saw the person who's been following me. Star. Asterisk, he was near the playground, hiding behind the big oak tree. I only saw him for a second, but I know it was him. He was tall and thin, and he was wearing a dark coat. His face was hidden in the shadows, but I could feel his eyes on me. Star. Asterisk, I'm calling him the Shadow because that's what he looks like, a dark shadow lurking in the corners of my eyes. He doesn't say anything. He just watches. It's so creepy. Star. Asterisk, I tried to tell Sarah again today, but I couldn't. I started to cry, and she got worried. I told her I was just having a bad day. I don't want her to think I'm crazy. Star. Asterisk, I'm afraid the Shadow will follow me home. I'm afraid he'll hurt me. I don't know what to do. I wish I could disappear. I wish I could be invisible. Star. Asterisk, I'm going to try to stay away from the playground after school. Maybe if I take a different route home, he won't be able to find me. But what if he's waiting for me somewhere else? Star. Asterisk, I'm so scared, Diary. I don't know what to do. Star. Love. Emily. Arthur's blood ran cold. The Shadow. Who was this mysterious figure that had been tormenting Emily? Was this person responsible for her disappearance? The diary entry painted a disturbing picture of a young girl living in fear, haunted by a shadowy presence that seemed to be closing in on her. He knew he had to get this diary to the police immediately. This could be the break they needed to finally solve this case. The chilling details of the Shadow could unlock a truth that had been hidden for nearly 2 decades. Arthur's heart pounded as he carefully turned the page to the final entry in Emily's diary. The date was just 2 days before she vanished. The handwriting was frantic, almost illegible in places. October 20th, 2005. Dear Diary. Asterisk, I'm so scared. The Shadow is getting closer. I think he knows my name. Today, as I was walking past the oak tree, I heard someone whisper, Emily. It was so faint, but I know I heard it. It was him. The Shadow. Star. Asterisk, he's not just watching me anymore. He's trying to talk to me. I don't know what he wants, but I'm terrified. I tried to run, but he was faster. He followed me almost all the way home. I had to hide behind Mrs. Gable's flower shop until he went away. Star. Asterisk, I can't go to school anymore. I can't walk home. I am trapped. The shadow is everywhere. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm in a cage, and he's the one holding the key. Star. Asterisk, I'm going to hide this diary in a safe place where no one can find it. Maybe someday, someone will find it and know what happened to me. Maybe someday, someone will stop the shadow. Star. Asterisk, please, diary, help me. I don't want to disappear. Star. Love. Emily. Arthur closed the diary, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Tears streamed down his face. The final entry was a desperate plea, a chilling premonition of what was to come. Emily had known she was in danger. She had sensed that something terrible was about to happen, and no one had been there to help her. The weight of Emily's fear and desperation settled heavily on Arthur's shoulders. He knew he had to act quickly. He carefully placed the diary back in the locker, closed the door, and rushed to his truck. He had to get to the police station. He had to tell them everything. Emily's voice, silenced for so long, was finally ready to be heard, and Arthur was determined to make sure it was. The hunt for the shadow was about to begin. Arthur burst into the Havenwood police station, his face flushed and his breath coming in ragged gasps. He clutched the worn diary tightly in his hand, as if afraid it would disappear. The officer on duty, a young woman named Officer Miller, looked up in surprise. Mr. Peterson, is everything all right? She asked, recognizing Arthur. It's Emily Carter, Arthur said, his voice trembling. I found something important. He recounted his discovery at the old school, his voice breaking with emotion as he described the hidden locker and the diary inside. Officer Miller listened intently, her expression growing increasingly serious. She immediately called Detective Harding, the lead investigator on cold cases. Detective Harding arrived at the station within minutes, his face etched with skepticism. He had heard countless leads in the Emily Carter case over the years, and none of them had ever amounted to anything. But as he listened to Arthur's story and examined the diary, his skepticism began to fade. The handwriting was undeniably Emily's, and the content of the entries was deeply disturbing. The mention of the shadow sent a chill down his spine. Detective Harding made a decision. He was reopening the Emily Carter case. The news spread quickly through the Havenwood police station. A buzz of excitement and anticipation filled the air. The officers, many of whom had grown up hearing about Emily's disappearance, felt a renewed sense of hope. Detective Harding assembled a team of investigators and ordered a thorough search of the old school building. He wanted every inch of the property examined, from the attic to the basement. He instructed the team to pay particular attention to the playground and the area around the oak tree, the places Emily had mentioned in her diary. The investigation was back on, and the hunt for the shadow had begun. The secrets buried within the walls of the old school were about to be unearthed, and the truth about what happened to Emily Carter was finally within reach. Havenwood held its breath, waiting to see if justice would finally be served. Detective Harding's team began the daunting task of tracking down former teachers and staff who had worked at the school in 2005. Many had moved away, retired, or, sadly, passed away. But the detectives persevered, determined to leave no stone unturned. They interviewed Mrs. Davison, Emily's fourth-grade teacher. She remembered Emily fondly, describing her as a bright and enthusiastic student. Emily was a joy to have in class, she said, her voice tinged with sadness. She was always smiling, always eager to learn. It broke my heart when she disappeared. But Mrs. Davison couldn't recall anything suspicious. She hadn't noticed anyone paying particular attention to Emily, nor had Emily ever mentioned feeling afraid or being followed. She simply remembered a happy, well-adjusted little girl. The detectives interviewed other teachers, the school principal, and even the school nurse. They all remembered Emily, and they all expressed their shock and sorrow over her disappearance. But none of them could provide any information about the shadow or anything else that might shed light on the case. The interviews were frustrating for Detective Harding. He had hoped that someone would remember something, anything, that could help them identify the shadow. But it seemed that Emily had kept her fears to herself, confiding only in her diary. The detectives also interviewed Arthur, the janitor who had found the diary. He reiterated his story, emphasizing his shock at discovering the hidden locker and the disturbing contents of the diary. He couldn't recall seeing anyone suspicious around the school at the time of Emily's disappearance. The interviews were dead-end. Detective Harding felt a familiar sense of frustration creeping in. He knew that solving this case would be an uphill battle, but he refused to give up. He was determined to bring Emily's tormentor to justice, no matter how long it took. He just needed a new lead, a new piece of the puzzle. The search continued, the clock ticking, and the shadow remained elusive. Detective Harding shifted his focus to identifying the shadow. He knew that Emily's description, tall, thin, wearing a dark coat, was vague, but it was all they had to go on. He tasked his team with scouring old-school records of photographs, searching for anyone who fit the profile. They reviewed yearbooks, class pictures, and even old staff photos, looking for a face that matched Emily's description of the shadow. They paid close attention to anyone who seemed withdrawn, isolated, or had a history of behavioral issues. The detectives also investigated anyone who had been known to spend time near the school or the playground. They interviewed former students, neighbors, and even local residents, asking if they remembered seeing anyone suspicious in the area around the time of Emily's disappearance. They looked into truancy records, tried to identify students who might have been skipping school and lurking near the playground during school hours. They also investigated any reports of bullying or harassment that might have involved Emily or other students. As they delved deeper into the school's past, they uncovered a few potential leads. There was a student who had been known for wearing a long, dark coat, even in warm weather. There was also a former janitor who had been fired for inappropriate behavior around the students. But none of the leads seemed to fit perfectly. The student with the dark coat had moved away shortly after Emily's disappearance, and the former janitor had a solid alibi for the day Emily vanished. Detective Harding felt like he was chasing a ghost. The shadow remained elusive, a phantom lurking just beyond their grasp. He knew that time was running out. The longer the case went unsolved, the harder it would be to find the truth. He needed a break, a new piece of information that could point them in the right direction. The search continued, fueled by hope and desperation, but the shadow continued to haunt the shadows of Havenwood. Just as Detective Harding was about to call off the search of the school, one of his officers, Officer Davies, made a startling discovery in the basement. Behind a stack of old, discarded desks, he found a hidden room. The room was small and windowless, its walls covered in dust and cobwebs. It was clear that it hadn't been used in years. But what caught Officer Davies' attention was the drawings that adorned the walls. They were crude, almost childlike, but undeniably disturbing. They depicted a tall, thin figure wearing a dark coat, its face hidden in shadows. The figure was often shown lurking near children, watching them from a distance. Officer Davies immediately called Detective Harding. When Detective Harding saw the drawings, a chill ran down his spine. They were eerily similar to Emily's description of the shadow. He ordered a forensic team to process the room, hoping to find fingerprints or other evidence that could help identify the artist. He also ordered a search of the school's records to see if there were any reports of unauthorized access to the basement. The discovery of the hidden room and the disturbing drawings sent a jolt of energy through the investigation. It was the first concrete evidence they had found that supported Emily's claims about the shadow. Detective Harding felt a surge of hope. He was finally closing in on the truth. He could feel it. He knew that the answer to Emily's disappearance was hidden somewhere within the walls of the old school, and he was determined to find it. The drawings, a haunting echo of Emily's fear, had reignited the hope that justice could still be served, even after all these years. The hunt for the shadow was about to enter a new and dangerous phase. As the forensic team processed the hidden room, Detective Harding decided to re-interview Arthur. He couldn't shake the feeling that Arthur was holding something back. He had been too eager to help, too quick to dismiss any connection to the shadow. During the interview, Detective Harding noticed that Arthur seemed increasingly nervous. He fidgeted in his chair, avoided eye contact, and his answers became shorter and more hesitant. When asked about the hidden room, Arthur claimed he had never seen it before, despite working at the school for many years. Detective Harding decided to press him further. He reminded Arthur that he had worked at the school when Emily disappeared. He asked him if he had ever noticed anything suspicious, anything out of the ordinary. Arthur hesitated, his face pale. He stammered, "I don't know what you mean." Detective Harding leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Mr. Peterson," he said, his voice firm but gentle, "I know this is difficult, but it's important that you tell me the truth. Did you see anything at all, that might help us understand what happened to Emily?" Arthur's silence stretched on, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely a whisper. I saw her talking to someone," he said, his eyes filled with fear. "Talking to someone?" Detective Harding asked, his heart pounding. "Who was she talking to?" Arthur shook his head, his eyes darting around the room. "I don't know," he said. "It was a long time ago. I don't remember." Detective Harding knew he was lying. He could see it in his eyes. Arthur knew more than he was letting on. He was hiding something, and Detective Harding was determined to find out what it was. Arthur, the seemingly harmless janitor, had suddenly become a person of interest. The secrets of the old school were about to be revealed, one way or another. A flicker of memory, a brief flashback, washed over the scene. The interrogation room seemed to dissolve, replaced by the sunny playground of 2005. Arthur, younger and with a full head of dark hair, stood near the school building, sweeping the sidewalk. He watched the children playing during recess, their laughter and shouts echoing through the air. He smiled faintly, a wistful expression on his face. Emily, with her bright smile and pigtails, skipped across the playground, playing tag with her friends. She tripped and fell, scraping her knee. Arthur rushed over to help her, his face filled with concern. He knelt down beside her, gently cleaning the scrape with a tissue. "Are you all right, Emily?" he asked, his voice kind and soothing. Emily nodded, her eyes shining with tears. "It stings a little," she said. Arthur smiled reassuringly. "It'll be all right," he said. "Just a little scratch." He placed a colorful bandage on her knee. "All better," he said. Emily smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Peterson," she said. Arthur watched as Emily ran back to join her friends, her laughter filling the air once more. He felt a sense of warmth and contentment, a feeling of connection to the children he watched over every day. But even in the flashback, a shadow lingered. Arthur's eyes followed Emily a little too long, a little too intently. There was something in his gaze that hinted at a deeper, more complicated emotion. The flashback ended abruptly, and the interrogation room snapped back into focus. Arthur's face was pale and drawn, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and regret. The brief glimpse into his past had revealed a hidden layer of complexity, a suggestion that his connection to Emily was more than just a casual acquaintance. The question now was, how much more? What secrets was he still hiding? Detective Harding pressed Arthur, his voice unwavering. "Mr. Peterson, I know you remember more than you're telling me. Emily's life may depend on it. Please, tell me the truth." Arthur's shoulders slumped, and he sighed deeply. He looked up at Detective Harding, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. "All right," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'll tell you what I saw." He confessed that he had seen Emily on the day she disappeared. He had been sweeping near the entrance to the woods when he saw her talking to someone. He couldn't make out who it was, but he remembered that the person was standing near the edge of the trees. "I didn't think much of it at the time," Arthur said. "Kids often talk to each other after school. I just assumed it was one of her friends." "Did you see what they were talking about?" Detective Harding asked, his voice sharp. Arthur shook his head. "No," he said. "I was too far away. I just saw them standing there, talking. Then I went back to sweeping." "Did you see which way Emily went after she finished talking to this person?" Detective Harding asked. "Yes," Arthur said. "She walked towards the woods. But I swear, Detective, I didn't hurt her. I would never hurt Emily. I liked her. She was a good kid. Detective Harding studied Arthur's face, trying to gauge his sincerity. He believed that Arthur was telling the truth about seeing Emily talking to someone, but he still suspected that Arthur was holding something back. He couldn't shake the feeling that the janitor knew more than he was letting on, but he was also convinced that Arthur hadn't harmed Emily. He seemed genuinely remorseful and saddened by her disappearance. The focus now shifted to finding the person Emily was talking to near the woods. Who was this mysterious individual? And what did they have to do with Emily's disappearance? The hunt for the shadow had just taken a new and unexpected turn. The woods, once a place of childhood adventure, had now become the focal point of the investigation. The police shifted their investigation to identifying the person Emily was seen talking to near the woods. They revisited their interviews with former students, teachers, and neighbors, focusing on anyone who might have had a connection to Emily or a reason to be near the school on that fateful afternoon. They showed Arthur photos of former students and staff, hoping he could identify the person he had seen Emily talking to. But Arthur couldn't remember what the person looked like. He said it had been a long time ago, and he hadn't paid much attention. Detective Harding ordered his team to create a composite sketch based on Arthur's vague description. The sketch depicted a tall, thin figure with indistinct features, wearing a dark coat. It wasn't much to go on, but it was better than nothing. The police released the sketch to the public, asking anyone who recognized the person to come forward. They also expanded their search of the woods, hoping to find any clues that might lead them to the mysterious individual. They discovered a small, hidden clearing deep within the woods, near the edge of the school property. It was clear that someone had been spending time there. There were signs of a small campfire, and they found a few discarded candy wrappers and a crumpled-up piece of paper with a drawing of a heart on it. The clearing became a focal point of the investigation. The forensic team carefully examined the area, collecting any evidence that might link it to the shadow or the person Emily had been talking to. As the investigation intensified, the town of Havenwood was once again gripped by fear and uncertainty. The hope that had briefly flickered to life with the discovery of Emily's diary was now tempered by a growing sense of unease. Who was this mysterious person Emily had been talking to? And what did they have to do with her disappearance? The answers to those questions lay hidden somewhere in the shadows of Havenwood, waiting to be revealed. The hunt for the new suspect was on. The composite sketch finally yielded a lead. A former classmate of Emily's, now a grown woman named Jessica, recognized the sketch and contacted the police. She told them that the sketch resembled a boy named Billy Thompson, who had been in their class in 4th grade. Jessica explained that Billy had always been shy and withdrawn. He had a crush on Emily, but he was too afraid to talk to her. He often wore a long, dark coat, even in warm weather, and he was known for spending time near the playground and the woods. Detective Harding's team located Billy, who was now living in a neighboring town. They brought him in for questioning. At first, Billy denied any involvement in Emily's disappearance. But as the detectives pressed him, he began to crack. He confessed that he had been the shadow. He admitted that he had followed Emily because he had a crush on her and was too shy to talk to her. He had never meant to scare her. He just wanted to be near her. Billy explained that he had hidden in the shadows, watching Emily from a distance. He had written her name in the dirt and whispered it when she walked by. He had even left her candy and the drawing of a heart in the clearing in the woods. "I didn't mean to hurt her," Billy said, his voice filled with remorse. "I just wanted her to notice me. I was just a stupid kid." Detective Harding asked Billy if he knew what had happened to Emily. Billy shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know," he said. "I saw her talking to someone near the woods that day, but I don't know who it was. I got scared and ran away. I never saw her again." While Billy's confession cleared up the mystery of the shadow, it didn't solve the mystery of Emily's disappearance. He was just a lovesick boy who had inadvertently scared her. He wasn't the person who had harmed her. The search for the real culprit continued, the truth still hidden somewhere in the shadows of Havenwood. Detective Harding, sensing that Billy might know more than he was letting on, decided to ask him about the diary and the hidden locker. "Billy," he said, "did you know that Emily kept a diary?" Billy hesitated, his eyes darting around the room. I might have," he stammered. Did you know that she hid her diary in a locker at the school? Detective Harding pressed. Billy's face turned pale. He confessed that he had seen Emily hide the diary in the locker. He explained that she had been afraid that someone would find it and read her secrets. He had watched her seal the locker shut with the heavy-duty bolts, hoping to keep it safe. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Detective Harding asked, his voice stern. Billy hung his head, his voice barely audible. "I was scared," he said. "I was afraid that if I told anyone, they would find out that I was the shadow. I didn't want to get in trouble." He explained that he had carried the secret with him for all these years, the guilt weighing heavily on his conscience. He had always regretted not telling someone about the diary, but he had been too afraid to come forward. Detective Harding realized that Billy's silence had inadvertently prolonged the mystery of Emily's disappearance. If he had told someone about the diary years ago, the police might have been able to find it sooner, and perhaps Emily would have been found. But Detective Harding also understood that Billy had been just a child, acting out of fear and ignorance. He couldn't blame him for his silence. He needed to focus on finding the person who was truly responsible for Emily's disappearance. The woods, the clearing, and the elusive person Emily spoke to that day remained the key to unlocking the truth. Though the shadow was revealed, the darkness surrounding Emily's fate remained. With the shadow identified and cleared of any direct involvement in Emily's disappearance, Detective Harding refocused his efforts on finding the person Emily had been talking to near the woods. Billy, despite his fear, provided a crucial detail. He remembered seeing Emily walk further into the woods after talking to this person. Detective Harding organized a massive search of the woods, using cadaver dogs to assist in the effort. The dogs, trained to detect the scent of human remains, led the search teams deeper into the dense forest, beyond the hidden clearing and into areas that had never been searched before. Days turned into agonizing nights as the search continued. The hope that Emily might still be alive dwindled with each passing hour. The town of Havenwood held its breath, praying for a miracle, but fearing the worst. Finally, after a week of relentless searching, the cadaver dogs picked up a scent near a steep ravine, far from the school and the playground. The search team followed the dogs down into the ravine, where they discovered what remained of Emily Carter. Her remains were found buried beneath a pile of leaves and branches, hidden from view for nearly 2 decades. The discovery sent a wave of grief and shock through Havenwood. The mystery of Emily's disappearance had finally been solved, but the truth was far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. Detective Harding knew that finding Emily's remains was just the first step. He now had to determine who had killed her and why. The investigation was far from over. The woods, once a place of childhood innocence, had now become a crime scene, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of Havenwood. The search for justice was about to begin. The news of Emily's discovery brought a mix of sorrow and relief to her family. After nearly 2 decades of uncertainty, they finally had answers. They could finally lay Emily to rest, giving her the proper burial she deserved. The funeral was held in Havenwood, drawing people from all over the region. Emily's parents, their faces etched with grief, stood beside her casket, receiving condolences from friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had been touched by her story. Sarah, Emily's best friend, returned to Havenwood for the funeral. She stood beside Emily's parents, offering them comfort and support. She remembered the happy times they had shared, the dreams they had dreamed, the future that had been stolen from them. The town of Havenwood mourned the loss of Emily, their collective grief a tangible presence in the air. They remembered her as a bright, cheerful little girl, a symbol of innocence and hope. Her disappearance had cast a long shadow over their town, and her discovery brought a sense of closure, but also a profound sense of sadness. The discovery of Emily's diary and the revelation of the shadow had taught the town a valuable lesson about the importance of speaking up when you're scared. Emily had been afraid to tell anyone about the shadow, and her silence had inadvertently put her in danger. The town leaders organized community meetings to discuss ways to create a safer environment for children. They encouraged parents to talk to their children about their fears and to listen to them without judgment. They also established a hotline for children to report any suspicious activity or feelings of unease. Emily's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the most idyllic communities, danger can lurk in the shadows. The town of Havenwood vowed to never forget Emily and to learn from her tragic fate. Though the pain of her loss would linger, they were determined to create a better, safer future for their children. The memory of Emily, once a source of fear and uncertainty, would now serve as a beacon of hope and resilience. The old school building, once a symbol of Havenwood's decline, was transformed into a memorial for Emily and other missing children. The community rallied together, cleaning up the abandoned building and creating a peaceful space for reflection and remembrance. The playground, where Emily had spent so many happy hours, was renovated and equipped with new swings, slides, and climbing structures. A colorful mural, depicting children playing in a sunlit meadow, was painted on one of the school's exterior walls. Inside the school, a small museum was created, displaying photographs of Emily, her diary, and other artifacts from her life. A memorial wall was erected, listing the names of other missing children from across the country. A dedication ceremony was held, attended by Emily's family, friends, and members of the Havenwood community. Detective Harding spoke at the ceremony, vowing to continue the search for Emily's killer and to bring them to justice. Sarah also spoke, sharing her memories of Emily and urging everyone to never forget her. "Emily was a bright light in our lives," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Her spirit will live on in our hearts forever." As the ceremony concluded, the people of Havenwood made a solemn promise to never forget Emily and to always remember the lessons they had learned from her tragic fate. They vowed to protect their children, to listen to their fears, and to create a community where everyone felt safe and valued. The memorial stood as a testament to Emily's enduring legacy, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, hope can still prevail. The old school, once a symbol of loss and despair, had become a beacon of light, a place where memories were cherished and promises were kept. Emily Carter's story, once a haunting mystery, had become a powerful reminder of the importance of love, compassion, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The town would never forget her,